Welcome to another episode of my BCC. I'm Cantor Yuval Porat, and I'm so delighted to have Jessica Donath with me today. Hi, Jessie.
Hi.
When did you decide to join BCC, and what was it that drew you to this community?
The first thing that drew me to the community wasn't a thing, it was a person. It was Lisa.
For those who don't know, can you tell us who Lisa is?
Yes, Rabbi Lisa Edwards, our now retired Rabbi Emerita. She was BCC's rabbi for 25 years, and I met her when I was in graduate school in journalism school, and I interviewed her for a story I was writing. And it was love at first conversation. She took a lot of time and care and was really helpful and provided a lot of interesting information. And she did something that not a lot of people do. She connected me with somebody who would contradict her opinions. And I was floored because that's an experience as a journalist you just don't get very often with sources. And so I thought that I had to figure out a way how to keep this woman in my life somehow. At the same time, I was going through this program called Jews by Choice because I grew up in an interfaith family. And although I never identified as anything else but Jewish, I felt like I wanted a certificate that had a stamp on it that I could like hold into people's faces and say, "Here, look, I'm Jewish." And one of the requirements of the program was to find a rabbi who would take me to the Beit Din. And so I asked Lisa if she would become my sponsoring rabbi. And another requirement of the program was that one had to actually join a congregation. And so I decided to join BCC. And I was not convinced at the time that I would stay because I wasn't really looking for a congregation. And my experiences with organized Judaism just hadn't been that great. But to my own surprise, it grew on me really quickly. I realized that it was a space where you actually could bring your whole self, and it helped me to figure out different parts of my identity and how to combine them and make them fit into one whole and authentic self. And that was really nice. And that's why I stayed.
Isn't that amazing? How from that love at first conversation, so much was made possible to happen, was allowed to happen.
Definitely.
I'm certainly glad that you decided to try out BCC and stay. And I think you've been bringing so much vitality and creativity into this community, which is so fresh and wonderful to have. When you look back, how long has it been since you joined BCC?
It should be 10 years.
10 years. Are there any highlights that you can identify like right away?
There's definitely probably also been highlights that I can't identify right away if I had more time to think about it. But during my first high holiday season with BCC, we had a rabbinic intern, George Gold, and he opened one of his drashot for high holidays by reading a list of names of queer people who had committed suicide that year, queer young people. And that was just, it opened up a whole new world for me because I was completely oblivious, not to the fact that people commit suicide sometimes, but that the rate is so much higher, or the risk is so much higher for queer people to commit suicide during adolescence than for the rest of us. And he asked us what all of us were doing about the situation, or what we were planning on doing about the situation, and challenged us to do more. Mm-hmm. Since I hadn't done anything about the situation, As a direct result of this drash, I applied to the Trevor Project and became a online chat counselor for suicide prevention for primarily LGBTQ young people between the ages of 13 and 24, but really for everybody. I did that for 3 years. I think his drash really changed my life in that respect, and it did happen with BCC as the space where that change occurred.
That's incredible. I remember that sermon as well. I think the first sentence of that sermon was, "Our children are dying."
Yeah, kind of like a cold open,
Yes.
Like I said previously, I fell in love with Lisa and also Tracy, and I met just other people who were inspiring me just by the way they lived their lives and just who they were. And I was just really saddened and shocked to hear that all these young people never got a chance to figure out who they were and come into their own, and along the way in the process inspire other people to do the same because they killed themselves. That was really meaningful to me.
Thank you for sharing that. It reminds me also of the family blessing that we recite each Friday night, and how it communicates the wish for a full, authentic life for each member of our community and their family members. And it is likely to be connected to the awareness that lives of so many members of the LGBT community can be so fragile and affected by bigotry and all the various phobias and isms that we encounter in our society.
As someone who doesn't identify as queer, I actually felt that it was almost more important for me to do something about it than for queer people, because just like it can't be left to Jews to fight anti-Semitism, it can't be left to queer people to save the lives of other queer people. Mm-hmm. It's the duty of the predominantly not queer society that creates the system in which young people might still feel like they can't fit in and they have no place in the world, to do something about that and to change the situation. And so, I mean, he was in many ways, I think he was preaching to the choir in this case, but I was there too, and I heard him, and I tried to do a little bit to improve the situation.
Thank you for joining the choir.
So since I kind of let my guard down with BCC and embraced this whole community thing that I wasn't sure of at first, I was happy to take my parents to one of the second night seders that we had at BCC, because like I mentioned earlier, BCC just couldn't be farther away from my religious experience growing up.
Can you tell us where it was?
Sure, I grew up on the outskirts of the Jewish community in Frankfurt, Germany. At the time, or I guess still now, the Jewish community has this concept of having a unity congregation or a unified congregation, which means that you have Orthodox clergy usually, and then you have little groups within the congregation that are more liberal or whatever. I grew up in this grand, really beautiful synagogue building where the women were up on the balcony and the men were downstairs. And like I said, it was a mixed family, and my mother never converted to Judaism, and she still has no intention, which I always respected and been close to both of my parents. But it just created a source of just not feeling like I belonged, because I was just not accepted as fully Jewish, both by the leadership of the congregation, but also by my peers in religious school. Then I met Lisa. She was my first ever woman rabbi. I did not even know until that point that women could be rabbis. I've since found out that there were actually German female rabbis too, but it was just not on my radar. My dad is actually really secular. He's an atheist, and so the two Jewish groups that I knew were either very secular or almost Orthodox, and I didn't really fit in anywhere. And so BCC helped me find my place in Judaism, and I wanted to share that with my parents. And I was really happy that I got to share that with my parents.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so we attended the second night Seder, and it was unfortunately my parents had just arrived the day prior from Germany, and my dad was really tired, and I think he fell asleep 5 minutes into the Seder and pretty much stayed asleep the whole time. So my attempt at sharing my beautiful BCC with my parents was somewhat successful, but not fully.
I mean, maybe you can take comfort in the fact that no one got upset that your father fell asleep during the Seder and
No,
that he
nobody
was
seemed to
welcome
care.
to just follow his needs, which was in that moment to rest.
Nobody seemed to care, and he was comfortable enough, obviously, which was nice too.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, it actually was kind of like a family moment.
Yeah.
So it was nice. Another highlight that comes to mind is I was fortunate enough to participate in one of the adult B'nai Mitzvah programs that BCC offers. Yeah, that was fun because I didn't get to do that as a teenager. A, because I wasn't accepted as Jewish, and B, because even if I had been accepted as Jewish, it wasn't offered to girls. They couldn't become Bat Mitzvah. So that was cool. That was another way to kind of just claim my Jewishness for myself and also for other people. I think Luca was 9 months old by the time it was completed, the process, and he was obviously a baby and stuff, but it was still meaningful to me to have Vince and Luca in the audience when we had the ceremony. That was kind of just connecting all my worlds again.
Mm-hmm. It feels like a privilege to have been part of some of those moments you
You've been a
just
big
shared.
part of those moments.
So you live with your family in Pasadena and have been under quarantine ever since COVID-19 has been disrupting our lives. I want to ask you, are there any rituals or items that help you gain some optimism, some hope, some enthusiasm about the present, about the future, something that can bring in some more stability for you?
I think we're all trying to find new ways to connect with each other through this crisis. But I do have to say, I find it actually really challenging, this coronavirus pandemic. However, there are obviously silver linings. My family is kind of dispersed all over the world, and we've always used technology to stay connected, like video platforms like Skype and WhatsApp. Now that everybody's doing it, we've kind of reached a new level in the sense that we're now trying to actually bring together the whole family from different parts of the world, sometimes at least in one like conversation or one group. We did that for the first time when Vince turned 45, and that was kind of a surprisingly happy occasion or moment or experience for all of us. We're like, whoa, this is cool. We can all have all of us together in one virtual space, and that was really nice. And I don't think that would have occurred to us without the experience of having Zoom services and Zoom webinars and Zoom whatever, because we've been using video communication for so long. It just always like segmented. And the other thing is just watching my kids deal with the situation and still have fun and thrive and just be their happy selves is actually really it puts things into perspective. I'm a journalist, and this situation has affected the way I could do my work, and I have to now also try to work and homeschool kids or watch kids, provide daycare for my kids, and that's really annoying and frustrating. But then to see the kids kind of figure out how to make sense of the situation and be really adaptive and really good about all the things we ask of them. They're good with social distancing. They wear their masks when we go outside, and they don't complain a lot. They don't constantly ask to see their friends or their family. And I mean, sometimes they do. We all do. Just to know that we can help them go through it in a somewhat joyful and humane way has been a source of comfort to me too. as I mentioned earlier, BCC has been kind of an unexpected source of community and comfort for me. And it's also very, very few things in life are black and white, right? I mean, it's been at times a source of frustration and discomfort too. But like with any other meaningful relationship, it's important to put in the work and to give of yourself and try to, if something is not perfect, then try to improve it instead of just abandoning the relationship. And I think that's true for BCC and me too. Like I do try to improve or help improve the things that I think could be better, so that more people in the future can just find their place with BCC's help and in BCC's community.
Amen to that. Well, good to talk with you, and
Thank you for
be
having me.
well, and